It was a calm and sunny afternoon in a quiet neighborhood. Birds were singing, kids were playing in the distance, and everything looked peaceful. Jordan, a 29-year-old software engineer, sat on his porch with a cup of coffee, enjoying his day off. He had just moved to this neighborhood a few months ago. Everything seemed fine until that day. When he went back inside to check his laptop, something strange happened. His Wi-Fi wasn't working. That's odd, he thought. The network name had suddenly disappeared. He tried restarting the router, but nothing changed. Then, after a few minutes, the Wi-Fi name came back, but with a different name. It now said, Karen's Wi-Fi Private. Jordan blinked. "Wait, Karen," he whispered. Karen was his next-door neighbor, the one who always complained. If a leaf from his tree fell on her side, she would text the HOA group chat. If his trash bins were 2 inches off the line, she would call him out. He didn't want trouble, so he always stayed polite. But this was strange. He walked toward his router, checked the cables, and realized something weird. The password had been changed. How is that even possible? He said under his breath. He hadn't changed it himself. Only he knew the old password. Jordan sat down, trying to figure out what went wrong. Maybe a glitch, maybe some technical issue. But then an idea hit him. He opened his laptop and logged into the router settings using his admin access. To his surprise, someone had logged in recently from a nearby device. He scrolled through the connection list and saw familiar name, Karen's iPhone. Jordan froze. Did she hack my Wi-Fi? He laughed nervously, trying to convince himself it was just a mistake. But deep down, he knew something was off. He decided to take back control. He changed the Wi-Fi password and renamed it to Jordan's network. Then he set up stronger security. That should fix it, he said, smiling. But within 10 minutes, his doorbell rang. When he opened the door, there she was, Karen, standing with her hands on her hips, eyes full of anger. "Did you mess with the Wi-Fi?" she shouted. Jordan frowned. "My Wi-Fi? Yes. It's gone. You hacked my network. I'm calling the HOA about this." Jordan tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, I think there's a misunderstanding. That's my Wi-Fi. My router." She didn't listen. "I know what you're doing," she yelled. "You people think you can just take over." He didn't even understand what she meant. Before he could respond, she pulled out her phone. "I'm calling 911, she said firmly. "You're doing something illegal?" Jordan was speechless. "Wait, what?" "I changed my own Wi-Fi password." But she had already started talking to the police operator. He stood there, heart pounding. The neighbors began peeking from their windows. He could see their curious faces. A few of them whispered, some even pulled out their phones to record. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. A police car pulled up right in front of his house. 2 officers stepped out, walking toward him slowly. Jordan took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Officers," he said quietly, "I think there's been a big misunderstanding." Karen pointed at him, shouting, "That's him. He hacked my Wi-Fi. He's been spying on me." The officers looked confused. One of them asked, "Sir, is this true?" Jordan shook his head. "No, sir. This is my Wi-Fi. I can show you the router." But deep inside, he felt something heavy. This wasn't just a simple argument anymore. Something about the way Karen looked at him made him realize this was about more than just a password. The tension in the air was thick. The whole street was watching. And as the officers followed him inside to check the situation, Jordan had no idea that what they were about to discover would change everything. The 2 police officers followed Jordan into his house. The air inside felt heavy. One of them, Officer Miller, spoke calmly. "Sir, can you show us your Wi-Fi setup?" Jordan nodded. He led them to the small desk near his window, where the router sat, quietly blinking. "Here," he said. "This is my router. You can see my name right there, Jordan Brown." He pulled up his laptop, showing the admin screen. The officer leaned closer and saw the name of the network, Jordan's network, and the recent login attempts. Officer Miller frowned slightly. "Looks fine to me. Nothing illegal here." The second officer, a younger man, asked. So, the neighbor called because she thought you hacked her Wi-Fi. Jordan sighed. Yes, sir. I just changed my own password. I think there's been some misunderstanding. They both looked at each other, clearly understanding the situation. One of them stepped outside to talk to Karen. Through the window, Jordan could see her waving her hands in frustration, talking fast. Trying to convince them of something, he couldn't hear the words, but he could guess. She had always been this way dramatic, loud, and always right in her own mind. The neighborhood's silent eyes within minutes. Half the street had gathered outside. Some were pretending to water plants. Others were pretending to check mailboxes, but all eyes were on Jordan's house. It wasn't the first time Karen had caused a scene. Last month, she complained that someone parked too close to her driveway. The month before, she filed a complaint about the color of a neighbor's fence. Everyone knew her, but no one really liked her. Still, nobody spoke up. They all just watched. When the officer finally came back inside, he looked a little tired. Mr. Brown, he said kindly, everything seems fine. We'll file this as a misunderstanding. Jordan nodded with relief. Thank you, officers. The police left, but Karen stayed outside, staring at him with cold eyes. This isn't over, she muttered loudly enough for him to hear. Jordan's uneasy calm that evening. Jordan sat by the window, sipping his coffee again. The street looked peaceful once more. But inside, he didn't feel peaceful at all. He kept replaying the incident in his head. How quickly she had called the police. How easily the situation could have gone wrong. He thought about moving out, but he had just bought this place. It was his first home, his dream home. He didn't want to give up so soon. Still, something inside him whispered, "Watch your back." The next morning, he went out to get his mail. As he walked down the path, he noticed Karen standing near her fence, talking to another neighbor, whispering. When she saw him, she smiled. A fake, tight smile. "Good morning," she said sweetly. "Morning," Jordan replied, keeping his tone neutral. She tilted her head. "You know, some people in this neighborhood don't really fit in. HOA has certain expectations." Jordan looked at her, then at the other neighbor who quickly turned away. He didn't reply. He just walked back inside. Strange things began that week. Small things started happening. His trash bins were knocked over twice. His mailbox got a dent. One morning, his car windshield had water spots that looked suspicious, like someone had poured something sticky on it. He didn't have proof, but he could guess. He decided to install security cameras around his house just to be safe. That night, he reviewed the footage from the day before. At 11:47 p.m., a figure walked near his front yard. It was dark, but the porch light caught a glimpse of a red robe he had seen before. Karen's robe. Jordan sat back, heart racing. "This is getting crazy," he whispered. He copied the video to his laptop, keeping it as evidence. The quiet before the next storm the next day, he stayed home from work. He didn't feel comfortable leaving the house unattended. Around noon, he heard loud knocking on his door again. He looked through the peephole and froze. It was Karen, this time. She wasn't alone. She had 2 HOA members with her, holding a clipboard. Jordan's pulse quickened. He didn't know it yet, but this visit would uncover something that would turn the entire neighborhood upside down. When Jordan opened the door, Karen stood there like a storm ready to explode. Behind her were 2 HOA members, Mr. Collins, a tall man with a clipboard, and Mrs. Evans, who always tried to look polite but couldn't hide her curiosity. Karen crossed her arms. "Jordan, we need to talk about your internet problem." Jordan blinked. "My internet problem?" "Yes," she said sharply. "You're interfering with the neighborhood connection?" Jordan sighed softly. "I'm not interfering with anything, ma'am. I only fixed my own Wi-Fi." Mr. Collins cleared his throat. "We've received a complaint that your router is causing signal issues for nearby houses. The HOA wants to ensure everyone has proper access." Jordan stared in disbelief. "Wait, you're saying my private Wi-Fi is a community issue?" Karen smirked. "When people move into this neighborhood, we share certain networks. It's part of the system." Jordan frowned. He had read every line of the HOA handbook before buying the house. There was nothing about shared networks. This was nonsense. He stepped aside, speaking calmly. Would you like to see proof that it's my personal router? You can check the serial number. Mrs. Evans looked uncomfortable. Maybe we should let the tech team handle this, she said quietly. But Karen ignored her. No, I'll handle it. This man is changing passwords, blocking neighbors, and spying on connections. I won't tolerate it. Jordan took a slow breath. Karen, please. This is going too far. She glared at him. Too far? You've been using some kind of secret setup. You think you're smarter than the rules? The Discovery Jordan turned his laptop toward them. Here, he said. Look, the login history shows devices that tried to connect to my Wi-Fi. One of them is your iPhone. Karen's face went pale for a moment, but she quickly recovered. That's impossible. You must have hacked into my phone. Mrs. Evans and Mr. Collins exchanged glances. This was getting messy. Jordan stayed calm. I have no reason to do that. But clearly, someone has been using my internet without my permission. Karen pointed her finger at him. You're lying. I'm calling the police again. Jordan's patience was running out. He stood tall, looking directly at her. Go ahead. This time they'll see the truth. She hesitated. For the first time, she looked unsure. Then she turned and stormed off, dragging the two HOA members behind her. Jordan closed the door and sat down, his hands trembling slightly. He didn't understand why this was happening. He hadn't hurt anyone. He just wanted peace. The strange connection that evening, Jordan decided to dig deeper. If Karen had somehow connected to his Wi-Fi, there had to be a reason. He opened the router logs again and noticed something strange. There were multiple devices connected from her address phones, tablets, even a smart TV. He whispered. Then he noticed the timestamps. They went back months, long before he even changed his password. It meant Karen had been using his network from the very beginning. Ever since he moved in, he realized something chilling. She might have known his password because someone from the internet company had given it to her. Or maybe she was connected to someone inside. Jordan wrote everything down and saved screenshots. He wanted to be prepared if things got worse. The next day of the following morning, Jordan received an email from the HOA. It said, due to multiple complaints, your internet setup will be reviewed by the HOA IT department. Please be home on Wednesday for inspection. Inspection? They can't just come inside my home without permission, he replied politely, refusing the visit. But minutes later, a knock echoed through his door again. When he opened it, a man in a company jacket stood there. Hello, sir, he said. I'm from your internet provider. We got a service request apparently from the HOA to check your router. Jordan was stunned. He hadn't made any request. He let the man in, and within minutes, the technician looked confused. Sir, someone cloned your network. Jordan's eyes widened. What do you mean? There's another router nearby, same ID, same password history. Someone copied your setup. Jordan felt a chill run down his spine. He stepped toward the window, looking outside. Across the street, through Karen's living room window, a small green light blinked on a router identical to his. He whispered, she really did it. He didn't know it yet. But this discovery was just the beginning of something much bigger, far more dangerous than a Wi-Fi problem. End of part 3. Jordan stood frozen by the window. Across the street, inside Karen's house, a small green light blinked steadily, the exact same model of router as his. It was like staring at a mirror. He turned to the technician beside him. Can you confirm that signal? The man nodded slowly. Yes, sir. That router has the same name, the same MAC pattern. It's like someone copied your setup completely. Jordan felt anger rising in his chest. Can someone even do that legally? The technician shook his head. Not without access to your original network details. Someone had to log into your account. Jordan stared at the screen in disbelief. How did she get that access? He had never shared his password with anyone. Then he remembered something. When he moved into the house, the internet company had sent a local installer, a man Karen had recommended. She had told him, oh, Mark from next door helps everyone set up their routers. He's great with tech. At the time, it sounded kind and neighborly. Now, it felt like a trap. A knock at the door, the technician left after running a few more checks. Jordan was left standing alone in his quiet living room. His thoughts were racing. He needed proof, something that could show what was really happening. He went back to his laptop and checked the IP logs again. One device stood out, an admin access from an unknown user, timestamped at the same day his router was installed. The username read Karen_admin. Jordan's stomach twisted. This was no misunderstanding anymore. Then, as if on cue, there was a loud knock on the door again. He opened it carefully and saw two familiar uniforms. It was Officer Miller and his partner. "Mr. Brown," said Miller, "we received another complaint. Apparently, there's been some kind of digital harassment report filed against you." Jordan couldn't believe it. "By Karen." The officer nodded. "She says you've been trying to access her home network and personal devices." Jordan laughed bitterly. "She's the one who cloned my Wi-Fi. I can prove it." The officer raised his hands calmly. Okay. Let's take this one step at a time. Can you show us?" Proof in plain sight. Jordan led them inside, opened his laptop, and showed the log entries. "Look. Same name, same ID, and here's the timestamp. Someone copied my router, and it connects from her house." The officers leaned closer. Miller frowned. "That's very detailed evidence." Jordan pointed toward the window. "You can see the same green light from her house. That's the duplicate." Miller nodded slowly. "All right, we'll go talk to her." He stepped outside and crossed the yard. Jordan watched from the window as the officers knocked on Karen's door. She opened it quickly, acting surprised, as if nothing had happened. But her face changed when they mentioned his name. Her hand started waving again. She talked fast, trying to explain. But soon, one officer pointed toward her living room. She hesitated, then stepped aside. A few minutes passed. Jordan couldn't see much, only shadows moving. Then one officer came back, holding a small black router in his hand. Jordan stepped outside as Miller approached. "Mr. Brown, I think we found what you described." The truth unfolds. Karen followed behind them, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean anything. It was just to check the neighborhood signal. Everyone uses it." The officer looked at her. "Ma'am, duplicating someone's network is not legal." "You accessed his private account?" "That's a serious offense." Karen's face turned red. "He's lying. He changed the password, and then I lost my connection." Miller sighed. "Because it was his connection, ma'am?" The neighbors were watching again, phones out, recording. Karen's reputation as the perfect HOA member was falling apart right in front of them. Jordan stood silently, not out of pride, but disbelief. He had tried to stay calm through every insult, every accusation. And now the truth was finally in the open. The unexpected. Twista officers gave Karen a warning and said they would file a report with the HOA and the internet company. As they left, Miller turned to Jordan. "You did the right thing staying calm. Not many people would." Jordan nodded quietly. "I just wanted peace." But as the police cars drove away, Jordan's eyes caught something strange. In Karen's driveway, a small white van was parked, the same company logo as the technician who had visited earlier that day. He stepped closer, squinting at the side of the van. The driver inside was watching him, the same installer from months ago. And when Jordan looked directly at him, the man started the engine and drove away fast. Jordan whispered, "What's really going on here?" He didn't know it yet, but Karen wasn't acting alone. The real reason behind the cloned Wi-Fi was about to come to light, and it was far bigger than he ever imagined. Jordan stood on his porch long after the police cars disappeared down the street. The air felt heavy, the kind of silence that only comes after chaos. But his eyes were fixed on the empty spot where the white van had been moments earlier. Something about that man didn't sit right with him. He was sure it was the same installer from the day he moved in, the one who had set up his internet connection while chatting casually with Karen across the fence. He remembered that day clearly now. The installer had asked for his router password just to test the connection. At the time, it didn't seem strange. But now, it made perfect sense. Someone had given Karen access right from the beginning. Jordan went back inside, shut the door, and locked it. Then he sat at his desk and opened his laptop again. His fingers moved fast on the keyboard. He wasn't just going to sit and wait anymore. He wanted the truth, digging deeper. He opened the router's admin page and scrolled through the connection history. There it was again, the cloned device with the matching ID. But this time he looked deeper. He traced the IP address. After a few minutes, a name popped up on the trace. MarkNet Solutions. Jordan's eyes widened. That was the same company printed on the side of the white van. He opened another browser tab and started searching. The company looked legitimate at first glance. A small, local internet service contractor. But when he dug into the customer reviews, he found something strange. Several people had written similar stories. Suspicious router setups, duplicate networks, neighbors accessing my Wi-Fi, and data leaks. Each complaint mentioned the same technician, Mark Daniels. Jordan leaned back, whispering, "So it wasn't just me." The visit the next morning. Jordan went to the internet provider's local office. The front desk worker looked startled when he mentioned Mark Daniels. "He hasn't worked here for months," she said. "He was let go after a few irregular reports." Jordan frowned. "Then why is he still using your company van?" The woman looked confused. "That's impossible. All company vehicles were returned." Jordan's heartbeat quickened. Whoever that man was, he wasn't supposed to be working anymore. She wrote down a number and handed it to him. "You should call our security department. They might help you." Jordan took the number and thanked her, but before leaving, he asked one more question. "Do you know if he lives nearby?" The woman hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I heard he rents a small place near Pine Hill Street. That's just a few blocks from here." Connecting the dots that evening, Jordan drove slowly down Pine Hill Street. The sun was setting, and the air smelled like rain. Then, at the far end of the street, he saw it. The same white van parked beside a small house. He parked at a distance and took a photo of the van's plate number. Then he drove home quickly, his mind racing, back inside. He emailed the photo and his report to the local police, attaching all his router logs and screenshots. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted safety. Hours passed. The house was quiet, but Jordan couldn't sleep. Around midnight, his phone buzzed. It was an email from Officer Miller. "Mr. Brown, thank you for the information. You were right. The man in the photo is under investigation for unauthorized data access. Stay indoors tonight. We'll keep an eye on your area." Jordan exhaled deeply, relief and fear mixing inside him. The final confrontation, but the night wasn't over. Around 2 a.m., the sound of footsteps echoed outside his window. Jordan checked his camera feed. A man in a dark jacket was standing near his router box. He grabbed his phone and called 911 immediately. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the street again. The police caught the man trying to tamper with the cables. It was Mark, the same technician. They questioned him on the spot. Under pressure, he confessed. He had worked with Karen to clone Jordan's Wi-Fi and monitor his devices. Karen believed Jordan was a threat to the neighborhood, and she paid Mark to keep an eye on him. Jordan couldn't believe it. All this chaos, all this hate, just because someone couldn't mind their own business. The end of the scheme the next morning, Karen's house was quiet. The HOA sent out a letter confirming her suspension from the board. Mark was taken in for investigation. For the first time in months, the street felt calm. Birds sang again. Jordan stood on his porch, sipping his coffee, looking at the sunrise. He smiled faintly and whispered finally, "Peace." But deep down, he knew this story wasn't just about Wi-Fi. It was about trust and what happens when fear and prejudice take control. The next morning brought a silence that felt different. It wasn't heavy or tense. It was peaceful. For the first time in months, Jordan could hear the birds without the sound of sirens or shouting in the background. The air felt cleaner, lighter, like the neighborhood had finally taken a deep breath. He stood on his porch holding his cup of coffee. Across the street, Karen's house looked still. Curtains closed, Driveway empty. No one watering plants, no one yelling about rules. The world had finally gone quiet. News of the incident had spread across the neighborhood like wildfire. The HOA sent out an official statement confirming that Karen had been removed from the board. The local internet company released a note saying they were investigating Mark Daniels for multiple cases of illegal surveillance. Everyone was talking, but Jordan didn't join the gossip. He didn't feel victory. He only felt tired. A visit from Officer Miller that afternoon. Officer Miller stopped by again. He wasn't in uniform this time, just jeans and a jacket. He smiled when Jordan opened the door. "Mind if I come in for a minute?" he asked. "Sure," Jordan said. They sat at the kitchen table, sunlight falling through the blinds. Miller looked around. "Nice place. Peaceful now, huh?" Jordan nodded. "Feels strange. Quiet, but strange." The officer leaned back. "I wanted to tell you something off the record. You handled this better than most people would have. You stayed calm, gathered proof, didn't lose control. That saved you." Jordan smiled faintly. "Honestly, I just didn't want things to get worse." Miller nodded. "I get that. And you should know what you did helped us uncover something bigger. Mark wasn't just spying for her. He was collecting data from multiple homes selling people's private information. You exposed the whole operation." Jordan's eyes widened. "I had no idea. Most people wouldn't," Miller said. "But you did the right thing." Before leaving, the officer shook his hand. "Enjoy your peace, Jordan. You earned it." A letter from Karen. A week later, a small envelope appeared in Jordan's mailbox. No return address. Just his name. He hesitated before opening it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Jordan, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting my neighborhood, but really I was afraid of something I didn't understand. I hope one day you can forgive me." Karen. Jordan read the letter twice. He didn't feel anger, just sadness. Fear had made her do terrible things, and it had cost her everything. He folded the letter carefully and placed it inside a drawer. He wasn't sure if he could forgive her yet, but he hoped she truly meant it. Moving forward over the next few weeks, the neighborhood changed. People who once ignored him now waved from their porches. The man next door brought him cookies. Kids started playing outside again. Jordan slowly began to feel at home. He fixed his garden, repainted the mailbox, and even planted new flowers near the fence. Every small thing felt like a step toward peace. Sometimes, at night, he would sit on his porch and think about everything that happened. He realized it wasn't just about Wi-Fi or rules. It was about how quickly fear can turn into hate, and how courage can turn that hate into truth. The closing scene. One quiet evening, Jordan looked up at the sky. The sunset painted everything gold and pink. His phone buzzed. It was a message from the internet company. "Dear Mr. Brown, your case has officially been closed. Thank you for your cooperation." He smiled. Finally, the story was over. He whispered to himself, "All this because of a password." Then he laughed softly. But maybe some passwords aren't just for Wi-Fi. Maybe they protect peace. As the camera would slowly pan out, if this were a movie, it would show the calm street, the glowing houses, and the man who had finally found quiet strength and truth. Moral message sometimes. People fear what they don't understand. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone. And sometimes peace doesn't come when you win, it comes when you forgive. Jordan didn't just change his Wi-Fi password. He changed his story.